What's up, everybody? How we doing? Welcome to Mantle Motivations Podcast. I am your host, Dominique Bishop. This is the first episode. Y'all, I am so excited. I'm actually doing this. We're actually doing this. Look, I am so excited for what's to come with Mantle Motivation. I'm so excited for the future guests that I'm going to have on here. Some amazing people, people that I know personally, um, and all of the guests are people who have affected me in a positive way in my life, and have helped me some type of way, or and have inspired me some type of way. Before we get into all that, just like I stated before in my previous video I did, um, this particular episode is going to be just basically laying the foundation for those other podcast episodes to come. I also want to give you guys a little bit of background about me, some information about your host, and I want to tell you about Mental Motivations and how the name came about, and where it comes from. All right, so first and foremost, again, I am your host, Dominique Bishop. Guess I can't say that enough, huh? But Mental Motivations is a long time coming. I have been wanting to do a podcast for quite some time now. And how can I put this? I was scared. I truly was. I was scared to do it. Just like with doing any new thing, sometimes we're just fearful of what could happen, or what we think is going to happen, or what might not happen. But I just had to step out on faith and do what I wanted to do. I truly believe this is something that God gave me, and when I was trying to think of a name for the podcast, and Mantle Motivations uh, dropped in my spirit, and I was like, yeah, I like that. I like that. I like that a lot, and it's perfect because it coincides with something that my grandmother talked to me about a few years ago. Um, so to give you a little bit of backstory about that, my grandmother, may she rest in peace, Louis Jackson was her name. She was a bishop in the church. Not my last name. She held the position of bishop in the church, and she was over the Midwest region, and a couple of churches internationally that she oversaw and led. And of course, we had our own church home. But my grandmother called me. I believe it was towards the end of 2015. I had just seen her. I just saw her for her birthday in November 2015, but we had a conversation. She called me in December. And in that conversation, she told me and explained to me that she was passing her mantle down to me and another family member. And when she told me this, I was just kind of like, well, what is it that you need me to do? Or we have a family church back home in Chicago that I grew up in, and I was asking her, did I need to move back home to Chicago, where I'm originally from, to help out with the church or be a part of the church? And she told me, she said, no, um, your anointing that you have, and the message that you have for the people is going to be beyond the four walls of the church. And she told me that I was going to speak to nations, and that I was just, going to spread the gospel, and be a positive influence in the world. And I took that, and I was just like, wow, At that very moment, I didn't know what to do with that, but I knew it was a great responsibility. Um, any of you who know me personally, and knew my grandmother, she was a big deal to me. Still is. That woman's very influential in my life in every aspect. We had, my grandmother raised me, and took me under her wing. And it's not that my mother couldn't raise me. How it started was my grandmother was a teacher, and from what I recall, she started teaching in the suburbs when we lived in the city. We live on the south side of Chicago. And by the time it was, time for me to start going to school, I know I went to pre-K in the suburbs, but I know she wanted me to continue going to school in the suburbs because suburban schools back in the '90s, they weren't as crowded. Was considered a better education than what some of the schools were offering in Chicago. She had been in some of the Chicago schools, and even back then, the Chicago schools were overcrowded and things of that sort. So she wanted me to have a better opportunity, and she saw how the suburban schools were, and how they treated their kids, and how the kids got so much attention, and wanted me to be in that environment. So I moved from the city and moved to the suburbs with my grandmother, and I had been with her ever since, all the way up until I graduated high school and college. So my mother was also very influential in my life. I'm sorry. She was there for me very much. So she didn't, my grandmother didn't take the place of my mom. It was a better opportunity for me to live with my grandmother than my mother at the moment. And both of them, co-parented me together. But living with my grandmother, she was a very strict woman. And growing up in a very strict household and very religious household, there was a lot of things that I couldn't do. And my friends always joke with me because they remember growing up with me, and I was always in church, revivals. I mean, you name it, everything. Even all the way up until my young adulthood, I was in church all the time. I was with my grandmother. Wherever my grandmother was, I was. But I'm grateful for that because it wasn't just church, but my grandmother would take me to banquets that she would go to. With her being a teacher, she would have to go a lot of different places and do a lot of different things and conferences and things like that. And being a young age, I experienced all of that and being around a lot of influential adults. And I think it helped mold me um, to be the person that I am today. So going back to the mantle, let's talk about a little bit what a mantle is. Um, and in some aspects, the the noun mantle, it could be a cloak or a hooded cloak or something like that. But also, mantle is a representation of the responsibilities of one person being transferred to another person. And in this sense, that's what it was for me. So my grandmother passing her mantle down to me, her her anointing and her spiritual responsibility that she held, she's given that to me, and for me to take the baton and run with it. And like I said back then, when we had that conversation in 2015, I didn't know what that entailed as far as what I needed to do. I just knew I needed to do something. Um, I can let you all know that at the age of 19, I was ordained as a minister. So I had a little idea of what it meant when she, passed the mantle down to me. I had a feeling that had something to do with ministry and things of that sort, with our conversation. But the way that I felt and still feel about the church, I just, being within the confines and of the four walls, uh, for me was a little daunting. I just feel like, church doesn't always have to be at a church. You can have church anywhere. We can have church right here on this podcast. Um, you know, and the thing about church is that there's so many people, right now who don't go to church and don't want to be associated with church or the building or what it stands for, because of so many things that have happened over centuries of years, and all of that build up, and people are just honestly turned off by church, and what it means and what it stands for. Um, so with me knowing that, and I'm like, I'm so churchified. I'm the type of person, I get up, testimony, service, all of that, and give honor to God who's ahead of my life, like that whole spiel. Like I know all of that. I know church etiquette. I know um, all of that. You name it, right? So, but generations are changing things, and times are changing, and though I respect how things were, we have to adapt and change things in order to be able to, how do you say it, get the attraction of the people, right? So that's what mental motivations is about for me. I was telling somebody about the podcast, and I was like, I don't want this to be churchy, you know. I want this to be motivational, but because I am a believer and I believe in Jesus Christ and Him crucified, and I believe in God, of course, I'm going to speak about that because that's what I believe. But at the same time, I'm not closed minded, and I'm not going to force my religion or what I believe onto other people. Are you going to hear me talk about it? Of course, because like you just heard, I'm churchified. It's in me. It's not going nowhere. I believe. Um, but at the same time, I know there are people out there who might be listening to this podcast who don't believe. That's okay. I know there's somebody who might be listening to this podcast who's Catholic or who's Muslim or whatever you believe in, and that's fine. Um, my thing is, like I said, I'm open minded, and I want you all, my listeners, to be open minded as well. So it can be a fair exchange. And the people that I'm going to be bringing on the podcast, they're all going to have something to offer as well. And these podcasts, we're not going to always be talking about church stuff or, God or spiritualism and things like that. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We're going to be talking about uh, my prior career. I was in law enforcement. So I've got some friends who are fellow cops who are going to be coming on here talking about that. We're going to be talking about politics. We're going to be talking about the work environment. We're going to be bringing on other people who are singers and entrepreneurs and possibly some rappers. I mean, this podcast honestly could go anywhere and do anything. And I want to leave the forum open for that. Like I said, I don't want it to be just one, this is what we're doing and this is what I'm sticking to and this is how it is. I don't want it like that. Because sometimes when you make things too rigid, you don't allow yourself room to grow. So I want to always keep it open for the podcast to grow and for the business to grow as a whole. Mental Motivations honestly is an umbrella for some other things that I'm thinking about starting. And we'll get into that at a later date, a later time when things start to unfold. But right now, just focusing on the podcast. And man, I'm really glad that I'm doing this. And again, I'm so excited. So, real quick, just to get back on task, I want to briefly talk about the mantle again to kind of explain it a little bit more to somebody who's never heard about it. Like, I really want you all to get a grasp of the mantle, um, of the idea of a mantle, passing down a mantle, because again, this is something that this Mantle Motivations podcast was birthed from that. All right. So, how we talked about my grandmother and me, how she passed her mantle down to me, and she passed it down to another family member, my one of my older cousins as well. And she has her way of carrying out what it is that she feels she needs to on her end. But mine is different. I'm in a completely different state, doing completely different things. But one example that I did want to bring out, and it is biblical example. If you look in Second Kings, there was a prophet named Elijah who had a predecessor named Elisha. Elijah picked out Elijah to be his predecessor, to follow him and for him to watch and excuse me, study under him. Shout out to the blue cup, my lemon water, so refreshing. Um, Sorry for that, but Elisha, Elisha, was Elijah's predecessor, and he followed him, saw him, do his works, and I'm gonna keep it short. Um, and towards the end, well, actually, when Elijah first met Elisha, in order to let him know, I'm picking you, or the Spirit of God told me that you are going to be my predecessor. He took an actual mantle, the cloak that we were talking about, and he placed that around him. And immediately, Elijah, he left his family and began to follow Elijah. So years down the line, Elijah, um, he passes, but he doesn't pass in a normal way where he just dies. In the Bible, it says that a chariot of fire came down from heaven and took him back to the heavens. And Elijah actually witnessed that with his own eyes. And after that, well, real quick, my bad. So before that happened, Elijah had asked Elisha, what do you want from me? He knew his time was coming to an end. Um, and he asked him, what is it that you want from me, or what do you want to continue to take on with you in your ministry? And he asked for a double portion of his anointing. So he told him, he said, well, if you see me uh, during my transition, then that double portion will be granted to you. So, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but I did do some research. But if anybody needs to hit me up or hit me up in the DMs or comments or something, let me know, because we want to make sure we get this right for everybody. But you can also do your own research, like I said, Second Kings. Um, so when that incident happened, when Elijah was taking up, Elijah did witness it and he saw it, and he was granted that double portion. So it's like he was granted that double anointing to do the works of the Lord. So that's one of my examples of the mantle being passed down, and I feel the same way with my grandmother passing her mantle down to me. Um, I'd always prayed for God to show me the way. Like I said, I was ordained at the age of 19, and kind of strayed from that a little bit, only because I think, when I was in college, I was trying to be a little rebellious, because kind of grew up in a sheltered life. Just like I said, it was a strict household, very religious. I was always in church. So by the time I got to college, it was like, I'm out here. I'm out here now. I want to see what life is about. I want to go to the club. I want to do this. I want to do that. Want to drink, all that. But when it's, when spirituality and a love for God is instilled in you at a young age, and it becomes a part of your life, and it never leaves you. It has never left me. God has never left me. I know He hasn't. Though I have, strayed away from the path to a certain extent, or a little bit. I've always come back, and I am, you know, I'm a fervent believer in God never leaves you. We leave Him. You know. But with that being said, like I said, 19 years old, I'm ordained, and I was speaking at different churches and things like that. And at 19 was a very pivotal moment for me as well, because it was also the same year my mother passed. So picture this, Sicily, 1932. My mom passes, and we have her funeral at the beginning of February. Immediately after that, I start planning my ordination service that happens towards the end of February, right? So, and it was so crazy because people were still asking me, "Are you still gonna do the service? Are you still gonna, go through it?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm the type of person. that when I put my mind to something and I'm determined to do it, it's gonna get done. If I truly want to do something, I'm going to do it. It's a bit of a blessing and a curse for me because sometimes some of those things I might be determined to do might not be in my best interest, but because I'm so determined, it's like I'm gonna get it done no matter what. Rain, snow, hail, sleet, it don't matter. I'm gonna get it done. So I was determined. I said, yeah, and I, like I said, I felt the call of my life. And uh, it's so funny thinking about this story of when I was living with my grandmother, and I was sitting in the living room watching TV, and every once in a while, I would hear somebody say Dominique, and it was in my grandmother's voice. So I would leave out of the living room and go to her bedroom door, and I'm like, Grandma, did you call me? And she'd be like, No, I didn't. And I'm like, okay, go back, sit down, watch TV. And I hear it again, Dominique, when it, in my grandmother's voice. And I'm like, I go back to her room, Grandma, did you call me? And she was like, No, I didn't call you, sweetheart. I was like, okay, go back into the living room. Sure enough, I hear it again. I mean, like just normal, like I'm talking to you now, like you're hearing me. That's how I hear my name. That's how I heard my name being called in my grandmother's voice. And I was just like, okay, is she playing a joke on me? Because sometimes my grandma and I would play little jokes on each other around the house. We used to scare each other and stuff like that, pop from around the corner. So I'm thinking maybe my grandma was playing a joke on me. And because she was, the last time I asked her, she was snickering a little bit. So I went in back to her bedroom and I'm like, Grandma, come on now. Did you call my name? And she looked at me, and this time she wasn't laughing. And she was like, Next time you hear that voice, ask the question, What is it that you want me to do? And I was like, I'm like, okay. I said, but it's not you calling me though. She's like, no, it's not me calling you. She said, I feel like that's the voice of God calling you and he's trying to get your attention. Now, when this happened, I was in high school. Um, I don't remember what grade I was in, but I know I was in high school. I was a teenager, so of course this was before or leading up to me being ordained. And sure enough, later on that night, I heard it again, clear as day. Dominique, Dominique. So, I turned the TV down and I just kind of, went within myself and I said a little prayer and I was just said, God, I feel that this is you talking to me. And, what is it that you want me to do? You're calling my name for a reason. What is it that you want me to do? And I didn't get an answer right then and there. But a few days later, it happened again. And I said the same thing, saying a prayer. And I'm like, here I am. I'm open to whatever it is that you want me to do. And I felt in my spirit, he was telling me, I want you to speak to my people. And it was, I went back and I talked to my grandmother about it. And I said, Grandma, I heard that again. I heard it again. And she said, Well, did you talk to God about it? And I said, Yeah, I did. And he said he wants me to speak to his people. And she just looked at me and, just kind of grinned. And she said, Well, you have to follow the voice of the Lord, whatever it is he's telling you to do. And she left it at that. She said, Whatever it is that he's telling you to do, go ahead and do it. And after hearing the call from the Lord, that's when I really got into reading the Bible and praying and fasting, like pushing back the plate, not eating certain times throughout the day, to really kind of focus in and tune in on what my mission should be. So in that very moment, um, leading up to the ordination or leading up to me talking to my grandmother, and I'm like, I feel like I should be ordained. So I don't want you to think that it just came up out of the blue, but I had always been a part of the church in some type of way. Um, Me being a preacher's grandkid, on both sides of the family. My dad's mom and dad were reverends and in the church, and then my mother's mom and dad were both in the church as well. And then all of them held leadership positions. So I was getting on both ends, on my mom's side and my daddy's side. Couldn't run from it. Couldn't go nowhere. I was always in vacation Bible school, Sunday school, everything. But um, I was in a youth ministry that my uncle was running, and I would help him with the youth ministry. So I was always in church, always a part of the ministry, always helping out, always doing something. So I already had a certain, I guess you could say, um, certain sense of purpose of kind of what I was meant to do. But hearing the voice of God and hearing that calling just solidified things for me. So it wasn't just like I wasn't going to church and then all of a sudden the voice of God just, hey, this is what I need you to do. But it was always, I guess, it was ordained for me to do that because I was always in the church, like I said, and I was ministering and helping out in ministry and helping out with the children's ministry and all of that. And like I said, vacation Bible school, Sunday school, it was just in me. So the call came natural. It came natural. So sure enough, unfortunately, my mother passed. She passed from pneumonia, unfortunately, and like I said, that determination. Even though I did grieve and everything, but I was so focused on um, becoming ordained and continuing to do the work of God. And it's important for us to understand that when we have a purpose, and that's another reason why this podcast is here, is because I want other people to understand what their purpose is in life and to be determined to fulfill that purpose, to walk in that purpose. And little did I know, I had been walking in my purpose my whole life. Even though I may have took a couple of left turns when I was supposed to take some right turns or vice versa, but I was still walking in my purpose. And honestly, everything that I've been through in life has led me up to this point. All of my positive experiences, all of my negative experiences, I mean, everything. And that's how we have to look at life sometimes. And don't just look at, oh, I just had a horrible life or it sucks that all these bad things happen to me. But I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. I don't believe in coincidences. I honestly firmly believe that everything happens for a reason. No matter how bad the situation is, there's always a lesson to be learned, and there's always something that you can get from that and pull from that. When they say when life gives you lemons, make lemonade, or all the other sayings that they have for that. But that's what I firmly believe in, and that's why Mantle Motivations Podcast is here because, like I said, I'm walking in my purpose, and I feel like I have been my whole little life. Um, Thinking of one time, well, it used to happen a lot when I was a little girl. My grandmother had a house in Harvey, Illinois, and in the bathroom of that house, when you walked in the bathroom, you had the sink and the toilet over here, and we had a dirty clothes hamper on the back wall. And it was just, something basic, just a brown, like basket weave, wicker, dirty clothes hamper, just open and close it. And I remember vividly being in that bathroom with my grandmother, and she would be sometimes washing something out by hand in the sink or something, and her Bible was open and sitting on top of the dirty clothes hamper. And I would stand in front of that dirty clothes hamper with the Bible open, and I'm looking at the back wall behind it, just a plain old white wall. But it's so crazy. But in my head, when I looked out, I saw people, like hundreds of people, thousands of people that I was talking to. And I'm a kid now. I mean, elementary school doing this. And I remember this because I remember one time my grandmother, she brought it back up, and she was like, "You remember when we used to be in the bathroom? You know, back when I had got ordained and stuff like that." And I used to be pointing my little finger, and I'm looking at the wall, looking at the wall. But again, in my head, my imagination is so vivid. I see people, and I'm like, and God said this, and God said that, and God loves you, and Jesus loves you, and I'm just, just going on like I'm preaching, right? And she used to be in the bathroom just laughing and, looking at me and shaking her head and just, but she knew at an early age that there was something on me, and it just hadn't been revealed to me yet. But my grandmother always knew that there was something different about me. And even growing up, I always knew I was different. Like, sometimes even going to the clubs or hanging out or doing whatever, I would sometimes feel like I don't belong here, or I shouldn't be out here doing this, or I shouldn't be out here doing that. Like, sometimes I would feel weird and awkward in certain situations because there was just something on my life. It was like, you're not supposed to be doing this. This is not where you need to be. You need to, go do something else. But yeah, so this this mantle, I guess, has been on me um, way before she gave it to me. I believe, but the anointing on my life and the word that I have to speak to the people is a heavy burden sometimes. But I've been practicing on being extremely intentional with the things that I do and the things that I say and how I present myself. And listening and praying and keeping my ear open to the voice of the Lord. I mean, even to even do small things, when I see somebody walking by and I hear this small voice say, talk to that person or tell them hi or give them a hug or give them an encouraging word, and you have to be intentional like that. When you are in that situation and you hear that small voice, people call it be like, I heard something told me to do such a so and so, and I was nervous to do it. Well, especially if it's something good or something that could uplift somebody or something that could help somebody, go ahead and do it. But sometimes we stop ourselves from doing certain things because we think about what other people are going to think or what other people are going to say. But if you're truly in tune and you have discernment and you align yourself with the spirit and you stay centered and stay focused, it can go from a small whisper to hearing it as loud as day. It's just like how I'm talking to you now, and that's just how it is. But I just feel it's important for everybody to hear a message like this because it's not just church people that needs to hear this. Church people been hearing this stuff like this all their life, um, and I can't wait for one of the podcasts I'm gonna have with one of my friends. We're gonna talk about the church and certain things, and there's somebody else I'm gonna have on a podcast later. And we're gonna talk about the state of the church and how it is now. But it's just time for a change. The church is good for some people, but it's not good for all. Again, there's a lot of people out there who do not like the idea of church. Some people just can't stand driving by a church, and it's just so much that has gone on with the church and the people in the church. Some of the meanest people that I've ever met in my life have proclaimed to be Christians, and that's sad. And also, some of the poorest people that I have met in my life have proclaimed to be Christians. And That's another part of it. With being a Christian and being a believer, sometimes we stick to that. Well, my mansion is in heaven, and I get that, and that's cool. Yes, we do have a mansion in heaven laid up for us if we live a righteous life. But at the same time, just because I have a mansion in heaven and I'm going to get that in the afterlife, do I have to live dirt poor here in the earthly realm? No. I honestly, I don't feel that God wants us to live a life of scarcity. I honestly truly believe that He wants us to live a life of abundance. We can experience heaven on earth. We don't have to wait until we die and then see the streets paved with gold and live in that mansion that He has for us. I honestly truly feel that we can have that mansion here on earth if we want it. You know, we don't have to live a scarce lifestyle. And growing up, it just used to be baffling to me that we would be in church and be preaching about prosperity and preaching about tithing and preaching about the riches of the kingdom and all those things, but yet and still, you know, these people can't pay their rent, can't pay their light bill, can't do this, can't do that. And it's like, why are we living in scarcity? But the people who are out there in the world, and I put that in quotations for those who are listening and not on the visual. Um, but those people out there in the world are doing whatever they want to do, and they live a hound hall, rich, wealthy, doing whatever. And I do know sometimes that some of that comes at a price. Some of that comes at a cost. Some people do give up their souls for whatever, and have a love for money and make money their gods. I get that part, but the other opposite end of the spectrum is, why do we have to live like this? Why do we have to live in scarcity? Why do we have to rob Peter to pay Paul, per se? So we just need to look at things differently. I want church people to look at things differently. I want the elders to look at things differently. I know you can't, what they say, you can't teach old dog new tricks. But not just that, there needs to be more love in the church. And I know there are churches out there that love on people the way that they're supposed to be loved. I mean, if you look at the example of Jesus Christ, I mean, he wasn't in the synagogue that much. He was out with the people, right? He was out traveling, meeting people, and seeing their need, looking beyond their fault, and seeing their need, and wanting to help them. I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and we were talking about that, saying how um, if somebody comes to me and asks me for some food, and I immediately go into telling them, God loves you, and this, that, and the other. I mean, are they really gonna hear what I'm saying to them when their stomach is rumbling? Well, how about this? How about, okay, you hungry, brother, or you hungry, sister? Cool. Let me go get you something to eat. And while we're eating, you mind if I talk to you about something? I feel like that's a better way. There's a better way to do it. There's a better way to get to people. Somebody coming to me asking me for $5, and I immediately go into, let me pray for you right now. And I'm not saying that that's horrible, not saying that that's bad, but sometimes we have to see people's needs. If I can look in somebody's eyes and I can see that they're hurting, you know, I need to focus on that need. What's going on with you, brother? What's going on with you, sister? I see you hurting, or I see you in pain, or, you know, and speak to that, speak to their problem in that moment. Um, and again, bringing it back to the main focus, that's what Mantle Motivations is about: speaking to people's needs, all right? Speaking to them in the right now in order to help them to get to the future, right? Making sure that they have all the tools that they need, which honestly we do. Everything that we need in order to reach our next level in life or to expand our horizons. God truly has given us the tools that we need. If you think about certain things that bring you joy, or to make it more concrete, what are some things that you like to do that if you had to do it and you didn't get paid for it, you would still do it? For example, this podcast is one thing. It's something for me. I'm not getting paid to do this right now. Hopefully it happen in the future. But honestly, even if I didn't get paid for it, this would be something that I love to do. Another thing I love to do is playing the drums, right? I used to get paid for doing that as well, but playing the drums, I would do that for free because I love doing it, because it brings me so much joy. And there's some other things that I would love to do and wouldn't mind doing for free, but um, there are things that I will not do for free. Going to work, a regular job. Oh no, that's not my passion. I'm doing this to get a check and pay some bills, right? But if you look at your life, look at the things that you're interested in. Sometimes it's just as simple as that. Um, and you can start off by um, rendering your services for free, to get started, making your hobby, and eventually turning your hobby into something that you can make money out of. And then you're working in your passion and doing something that it doesn't feel like a job, because you're happy to do it. So that is what Mantle Motivations is about. It's about helping you guys to get to that point, because life doesn't have to be miserable. It doesn't. Life doesn't have to always be painful. Life doesn't have to always suck. We don't have to live in scarcity. There's so much more for us in the world. And there is room at the table for everyone to dig in and eat and to get and to gain abundance. That's how big this world is. If you look at how many millionaires there are in the world already. So many rich and wealthy people that are out there. And then you still have all of us. Well, there's still room at the table for us to be millionaires too. It truly is. That may not be your aspiration to be a millionaire. It's just probably just to be live a comfortable life. Well, you can live a comfortable life and be happy. And I admire people that have found, or work in their field that they're passionate in, at an early age. It took me a minute to find mine, but God allowed me. I always say this because God allowed me to do certain things that I wanted to do for a minute. And like I said, there's no such thing as coincidence. Everything's happened for a reason. So I worked in corrections. I worked in law enforcement. I was a detective. I worked in customer service field. I worked in sales. I've worked in so many different jobs, so many different fields to bring me to where I'm at right now. And I think, looking back over my life and all the things that I've done, all the people that I've interacted with, it has given me, um, how do you say, a sense of being able to do anything because I have done so much in life. It's helped me to gain confidence in myself to be able to do anything, to be able to talk to anyone. I'm the type of person that I can sit down in a room full of strangers and strike up a conversation with anybody, and we can find some type of likes, and get along in some type of way. Even people that I don't like, we find some type of commonality. Um, for example, my old job, I had a supervisor that I wasn't too fond of, but I had to look beyond him, and look at the job. What I needed to do on a day to day basis. So at the end of the day, a job has to be done. Well, I'm gonna do my job, even whether I like you or not. Whether I like you or not doesn't affect me. It shouldn't affect me doing my job, right? So that's what that's all about. Another thing I want to talk about real quick before I get off of here is opening doors for other people. Uh, I'm a firm believer, and I'll come in and I'll bust down the door, I'll do something, and I'm going to leave the door open for people to come in behind me. I love helping other people out. I love being there for other people to express themselves. And in this podcast, I want other people who I believe have a voice to speak. Um, you know, Again, like I mentioned earlier, the people that I'm going to interview and have on this podcast, all of them have helped me out in some type of way, or not just helped me out like physically, but mentally or emotionally, or spiritually, or there's some connection there. I've learned from them, and that's how life should be. We should learn from the people around us. We should be able to grow from the people around us. If you look around you and you don't see any progress, or you don't see any growth in your circle, well, something got to change. You got to find you another circle, or you be the one to spark the change, and cause a chain reaction. Um, but yeah, everybody that's gonna come on here in the future, they have a voice, and it's so funny because I hit up a couple of people and I got a couple of phone calls and text messages. I mean, why you want me to be on your podcast? I mean, it's cool and all, but why you want me to be on your podcast? And I'm like, why not? I mean, look at your life. Look at what you've been through. Look at what you're going through. Look at what you are going to accomplish. And some people are like so honored that I even asked. And to me, it's like it's not a big thing. I was a little nervous to ask certain people, but the response that I'm getting back from some people it's just like, oh man, this is really cool. And then I'm hearing some feedback from some friends, some family, and associates, and it's like I'm honored that you would ask me to even be on your podcast. And I'm like, well, you got a voice, you got something to say. So um, that's just what it is. Um, I have a platform, and I don't mind sharing my platform with other people. Now, there are some rules and guidelines. Don't come on here trying to argue and trying to act out and do all that now, because this is a positive thing here. Um, so yes, will I be selective? Very much so. That's why I love the fact this is my podcast, this is my platform, and I can do what I want to do. Um, I'm not trying to be a tyrant or anything, but again, that's the perks of having your own podcast, and having your own platform. Um, and all of us can have one. I mean, social media has made it as such where everybody has a platform. Everybody can get on and make videos and make TikToks and make Instagrams and make YouTube videos. And you have the good and you have the bad and you have the in between. But I want this to be an extremely positive experience, for myself, for my viewers, my listeners, and for those who are going to participate in the podcast. I also want this to be a learning experience. I want people to hear the other side of things and possibly be inspired, or might have a paradigm shift, and you might change your mind about some things. And it's okay if we can agree to disagree on certain things. That's fine too. But as long as it's a healthy conversation, um, that's what it's about. Healthy conversation, for us to grow as a people. Of course, we do have certain morals and values that we're just not going to bend on. I understand that, and that's okay. I'm not here to try to change anybody. I'm not trying to force anything on anyone. Um, this is a free thinking podcast. This is a free speech podcast. But with that comes a great responsibility. With the words we say and with the things we do, we are held accountable for those things. So that's why it's important that what you do and what you say must be intentional. Um, and again, with this podcast being a motivational podcast, I want to make sure that the people that come on are intentional with being positive, and motivating and inspiring. And I'm just, again, very excited about this opportunity. Very excited about the opportunity I created for myself. And I'm very excited for the opportunity for you all to hear the people that I'm going to bring on. I mean, man, the next episode that's going to air is going to be a relationship based episode. I'm going to have Mrs. Mantle Motivations on. I'm going to have my wife, Mrs. Kincaid Bishop. And we're gonna sit and we're gonna talk about relationship stuff, and we're gonna, give you all a peek inside our relationship. It's funny because people see us and how we interact, and we always get that question, y'all so happy, and y'all so this, and y'all so that, and trust me, it came with the price. Marriages are not easy. But the thing about marriage and the things about relationship is that if you truly want that thing to work, you're gonna work at it, right? And that means taking out ego and having very important conversations about important things, and checking in on your partner, and them checking in on you, and being respectful and all that type of stuff. So we're going to get into that on the next podcast, and we're going to sit down with her and we're going to talk, and I'm sure y'all going to hear some stuff about me, and then y'all going to hear some stuff about her, and y'all going to hear some stuff about us, the bishops. But again, thank you all for listening. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast, whether you're viewing it or whether you're listening on Spotify, whether you're watching a clip from wherever, Instagram or TikTok or what have you, or YouTube Shorts. But again, I want you all to like, share, comment on the podcast, on the shorts, and the little video clips, and everything I'm going to be putting out there. And you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, was Instagram Threads, YouTube, and everything again is Mantle Motivations. Mantle Motivations. All right. So thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. I love you guys. And remember, your crown may be tilted, but never let it fall off. Peace and love. Redirection. Tested on the same